Notebook organization. Now, this is a notebook that I created a couple of days ago. Actually, you will see me creating this notebook, a simple experiment. And this will be found in significant figures module a little bit later. So notebook should be pretty simple. At the top, there should be a title of the experiment. You can use a title that's given in the syllabus for each of the experiments. Now, I want to point out a notebook should only be written when there's an experiment, right? For the weeks that we have experiments. As I mentioned in the syllabus, some weeks we will not have experiments. We'll be doing a worksheet. Worksheet should be done on a separate piece of paper, not in the notebook. So a title should be at the top, just like I've written here. This particular experiment, I did a determination of the density of copper. Next should be an objective. What's the objective of the experiment? Now, I want to point out here, do not list learning objectives in the objective in your notebook. In other words, don't put anything like, we're going to learn about density. We're going to learn how to calculate density. That should not be an objective. The objective for this particular experiment was to determine the density of copper. And I discussed kind of briefly how we're going to do it. After that, are going to be your procedures. It's a simple experiment, so really there are only basic 2 steps in this procedure. And you describe the procedure. I use bullet points. You describe the procedure, and then if there's a measurement associated with the procedure, you put it out here at the end, like I've done here. So in this first step, I took a cube-shaped copper block and I measured its mass, 145.8891 grams. And I make that recording right here at the end of my written procedure. The next procedure was to measure the length of one side of the copper block. And I write that measurement as well, 2.50 centimeters. After your procedures, there should be the calculations section. Now, this section that I've done here is pretty messy, and you want to make it a little bit more organized than I did. The reason it's kind of disorganized is that I was making a video while doing the experiment, and I was kind of rushed in this portion. You'll know what I'm talking about when you watch the video. But density, by definition, is just the mass over volume. And I have the mass here, which was recorded in the experiment right there. And density, of course, volume, of course, was calculated by this formula. And I'm showing my calculations, and I'm putting a box around the final calculation that has the correct number of significant figures. After that, you will typically have a data table of some sort. Data table. So the mass of the copper block. And this is just where you're recording the data collected, just the raw data collected, and the calculations, final calculations in the experiment. Following that will be a summary. Write your summary. Shouldn't be very long. Just a brief summary of the experiment, the results. And if you have any references that you're using, and I did in this particular experiment, you want to list your references here. References don't have to be in any particular format, just give me an indication where you found this particular piece of information. And if it's an internet source, give the date that you accessed it, please. And that's basically it. That's how your notebook should be organized. A few other things about a notebook. Note that I'm not erasing anything. If there's an error, I simply cross it out or I put some type of editing mark. Don't cross out anything or erase anything that you put in your notebook. Just put a line through it, make a correction so I can see the errors. That's an important habit to get in when you're making a notebook. Sometimes what you think is an error turns out not to be, or maybe the error is you thinking it's an error. And so if you erase data that you collected, completely scribble it out or erase it, and you learn later on, no, that data was right and I needed it, well, it's too late. You eliminated it, and you have to do the experiment all over again. So get out of the habit of erasing stuff or scribbling errors out of your notebook. This is a PDF file. I made this file using CamScanner for my camera. And basically this is what it will look like after you do CamScanner on your documents as well. This PDF will be available in the module that this video is found, so you can refer to it as you create your notebooks.